Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is the 1948 Cleveland Indians, World Series champions. Again, the Tribe was playing in the American League, the junior circuit of Major League Baseball, and home games were played at Cleveland Municipal Stadium. The Tribe finished in first place with a record of 97-58, winning percentage of .626. They actually finished tied for first with the Boston Red Sox, and then beat the Red Sox in a one-game playoff at Fenway Park in Boston, and then beat the Boston Braves in 6 games in the World Series. Could have been an all-Boston World Series. So Cleveland beat Boston twice in that playoff and in the World Series. The second-place team was the Boston Red Sox, who were 96-59. Third place, the New York Yankees, 94-60. Fourth place, the Philadelphia Athletics, 84-70. Fifth place, the Detroit Tigers, 78-76. Sixth place, the St. Louis Browns, 59-94. Seventh place, the Washington Senators, 56-97. And in eighth and last place, the Chicago White Sox, 51-101. I'm reading a fine book. The title is The Teammates by David Halberstam, 2003. It's about Ted Williams, Dom DiMaggio, Johnny Pesky, and Bobby Doerr, who were teammates for the Red Sox, and who were part of the team that Cleveland beat in that one-game playoff. As I said, it was the game that the playoff game was in Boston at Fenway Park, and the Tribe won the game 8-3. There were a lot of promotions in the during the season, including by owner Bill Veeck. Mr. Average Fan. There was a night for Joe Early, a guy who was just a regular guy, and it turned out to be, it was really for all of the fans, but this one guy in particular who had complained in a letter that there was never a game for the fans. The attendance early night. The attendance for the Tribe, home attendance, in 1948 was 2,620,627. That was an MLB record at the time, and the record stood for 14 years until it was broken by the Los Angeles Dodgers in 1962. An average of 33,598 fans per game. Hank Greenberg, the former star for the Detroit Tigers, was vice president and farm director. During spring training, he actually came as a player, and there was talk about him playing first base or maybe outfield, but he decided he really was retired and was not going to play anymore. As I said, after the victory against the Red Sox in the playoff game, the Tribe remained in Boston to play the Braves in the World Series. This was the first time there had been an American League playoff. Previously, all teams that would finish first and go to the World Series. That same year, the Cleveland Browns were in their third year of play in the All-American Football Conference, and they were undefeated when they went 15-0 and won their third AAFC title. The Cleveland Barons also were champions in 1948, winning the Calder Cup in the American Hockey League. So Cleveland really was a city of champions in 1948. On June 20th, there was an MLB attendance record set for one game at the stadium. 82,781 fans came to watch a doubleheader sweep of the Philadelphia Athletics. The Tribe had a singing quartet in 1948. Larry Doby, the lead, Jim Hegan, tenor, Eddie Robinson, baritone, and Satchel Paige, bass. And they sang such songs as Down Among the Sheltering Pine, Sweet Sue, and Old Black Joe. Babe Ruth died on August 16, 1948, in Manhattan, New York, at age 53. So this was really the end of an era. Terry Pluto wrote about 1948, quote, "For men in Cleveland, such as my father, 1948 was a dream year. It was like winning World War II all over again. In 1948, Bill Veeck and the Indians had made my father feel special." I'm reading another fine book. It's called The Last Baseball Fan of Jimmy Fox by Jim Flint, 2006. Jimmy Fox played for the A's, Red Sox, Cubs, and Phillies between 1925 and 1946 and hit 534 career home runs. Reading another fine book, A Summer to Remember, Bill Veeck, Lou Boudreau, Bob Feller, and the 1948 Cleveland Indians by Lou Freeman, 2014. One week 1 week before the end of the regular season, the Tribe, Yankees, and Red Sox were all tied with a record of 91 and 56. And actually, had about a week or two before, the Philadelphia Athletics were also in the running. So it was really a very exciting pennant race. Finally, Connie Mack's Philadelphia A's had a good year. Bill Veeck was back as the owner and general manager. Veeck was the owner GM from 1946 to 1949 for the Tribe. Veeck said this, quote, We didn't win the pennant in 1948. We won it on November 25th, 1947, the day I rehired Lou Boudreau. Veeck was the 1948 Executive of the Year. Now, during the World Series in 1947, there were rumors that the Tribe was going to trade Lou Boudreau to the St. Louis Browns for Vern Stevens. There was Cleveland Tribe fans were in an uproar, and the trade did not take place. Again, this good old Joe Early night was interesting near the very end of the season, in the thick of the pennant race. And Veeck kind of did this in a way to help guys relax a little bit, have a little fun, because it's really a very nerve-wracking pennant race. And he had received a letter from Joe Early complaining that, well, how come there isn't a night for me? And so Veeck had a night for him. And among the prizes that Early received was a gold pass with a lifetime entrance for all American League ballparks. On May 5th, Bill Veeck had the third amputation on his leg, removed 1 inch of his leg below the knee. So he had, for the rest of his life, he had these problems with his leg. Larry Doby said in 1998, quote, Bill Veeck was one of the greatest people I ever met. It was great to have someone like that to back you up. I lost my father when I was 8, and I certainly would have liked him to be the same kind of man Bill Veeck was. Again, these Lou Boudreau trade rumors started during the 1947 World Series. Bill Veeck was at Toots Shor's nightclub restaurant in New York City. And famously, Yogi Berra famously said that nobody goes there, it's too crowded. And anyway, the trade did not go through, and Veeck later had the famous quote, "The best trades are the ones you don't make." Larry Doby, again, the first black American in the American League, sometimes was discouraged. He had some real tough times facing discrimination, racism. During spring training, one time he couldn't get a cab to the ballpark. He didn't stay with his teammates. He was staying with because he couldn't work it out. And then when he got to the ballpark, they wouldn't let him in. So he had all kinds of challenges. And Veeck, when he noticed that when Doby was discouraged, he would invite him to go to a jazz club with him. And they saw Ella Fitzgerald and Count Basie on different occasions to lift Larry Doby's spirits. On September 8th, Harry Grabiner, Veeck's partner and Tribe executive, collapsed and became very sick. This was a big loss for Bill Veeck because he was his closest person, really, in running the Tribe. In September, there was a September article in the American Weekly about pitcher Don Black, how he recovered from alcoholism through Alcoholics Anonymous. And this promoted AA to help alcoholics. That same day, Black pitched and had a cerebral hemorrhage, batting in the second inning. And he snapped an aneurysm. Later, Veeck had a Don Black night to raise money to pay his medical expenses. As I said, on September 28th, with the Tribe in the middle of the pennant race, good old Joe Early night / Princess Aloha Orchid Night was held at the stadium. 20,000 Princess Aloha orchids were flown in from Hawaii and given to the first 20,000 female fans entering the stadium. Excuse me. After the World Series title parade, the Tribe won the World Series in Boston, returned to Cleveland. They had this parade down Euclid Avenue, and Veeck wrote, quote, after the parade, quote, "Everybody seemed to have somewhere to go except me. If we had come home at night, I would have been fine. But where, I wondered, did people go in the daytime? I sat in my empty apartment with the sunlight all around me, and I thought of my son, who was something less than proud of me. And I thought of my wrecked marriage and my lost family. I thought of Harry Grabiner in a deep coma waiting for death. I'd had it all, everything I'd hoped for when I came to Cleveland, everything and more. I had never been more lonely in my life. October 24th, Harry Grabiner died. It was Bill Veeck's best friend and his balancing wheel, so this was a big loss. Anyway, an incredible year for Bill Veeck. Jack Graney was the Tribe radio broadcaster on 1948 on WJW Radio. Graney played for Cleveland in 1908 and from 1910 to 1922 and was the Tribe radio broadcaster from 1932 to 1953. Jack Graney. Jimmy Dudley was his partner on WJW Radio. Dudley was born in 1909 and died in 1999 at age 89 in Tucson, Arizona. He was a native of Alexandria, Virginia. He majored in chemistry at the University of Virginia. In the late 1930s, he was on a Charlottesville radio station. He also broadcast Chicago Cubs and Chicago White Sox games from 1938 to 1941. He was a pilot in the U.S. Army Air Forces in World War II and was Tribe radio broadcaster from 1948 to 1967. In 1969, he was with the Seattle Pilots. In the 1970s, he was in the minors. He had a friendly homespun style. His catchphrases included, "Hello, baseball fans everywhere." On a full count, he'd say, "The string is out." Another one was, "A swing and a miss. He struck him out." And then another one, "That ball is going, gone," for a home run. His sign-off was, "So long and lots of luck, you hear?" He also broadcast the 1954 World Series MLB All-Star Game and World Series. He also did Ohio State University games and University of Washington, and he broadcast games in the NFL for the Cleveland Browns, Detroit Lions, and Baltimore Colts. Dudley won the Ford C. Frick Award from the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1997 and was quickly a fan favorite. Jimmy Dudley. Van Patrick broadcast Tribe games on television, WEWS-TV in 1948. Patrick was born in 1916 and died in 1974 at age 58. He was best known as the play-by-play announcer for the Detroit Lions and Detroit Tigers from 1950 to 1974. When he died, he did the Tigers in 49 and from 52 to 59. Patrick went to Christian University. He played football with Sammy Baugh, who made it into the Hall of Fame, and was a Tribe television guy in 1948. Van Patrick. Tris Speaker was a coach in 1948. Speaker played for Cleveland from 1916 to 1918 and was Tribe player manager from 1919 to 1926. Late in the season, during the pennant race, Speaker said, quote, "I thought I'd left most of this behind me 28 years ago. I couldn't have been more nervous. It sure looks like we're playing 1920 all over again." Tris Speaker. Mel Harder was back as the pitching coach. Harder played for the Tribe from 1928 to 1947 and was a Tribe coach from 1948 to 1963. So this was his first year as a coach. Harder threw the first pitch at the stadium in 1932 and the last ceremonial pitch in 1993. At the time, he was the Tribe all-time wins leader in 1948. He won 223 games and lost 186. Lou Boudreau said, quote, I'll never understand why he has not been voted into the Hall of Fame." Bob Lemon said, quote, "Mel Harder taught me just about everything I know. He taught me to throw the curve. He was the best." Mel Harder. Bill McKechnie was the third base coach. McKechnie was a Tribe coach from 1947 to 1949. And McKechnie exulted after the Tribe won that playoff game against the Red Sox. And he had won a title as a manager himself. And people said, "Wow, you're really excited." And he said, quote, "It never gets old, son. It never gets old." Bill McKechnie. Ski Molilo was a coach. He was a Tribe coach between 1939 and 1940 and 1942, from 1945 to 1948 and 1950. Although most of the year he was a scout for the Tribe. Ski Molilo. Muddy Rule was a coach. He was a Tribe coach between 1948 and 1950. Rule was born in 1896 in St. Louis, Missouri, and died in 1963 in Palo Alto, California at age 67. Rule, during his career, batted .275 with 4 home runs and 534 RBIs. As a manager, he was 59 and 95 for a winning percentage of .383. Rule played for the St. Louis Browns, New York Yankees, Boston Red Sox, Washington Senators, Detroit Tigers, and Chicago White Sox between 1915 and 1934. He was a St. Louis Browns manager. He also coached the White Sox and the Tribe. He was the Detroit Tigers general manager between 1954 and 1956. Rule won a World Series title in 1924 with the Washington Senators. He was a top defensive catcher of his era and scored the winning run in Game 7 of the 1924 World Series. He was the battery mate of Walter Johnson. He was the Yankee catcher on August 16, 1920, when Ray Chapman of the Indians was hit by the pitch and died. He also won an American League title in 1925 with the Senators. He was a coach for the White Sox for 10 years, from 1935 to 1945. Rule was an assistant for MLB Commissioner Happy Chandler in 1946. He won a World Series title in '48 with the Tribe. Rule got a law degree at Washington University in St. Louis. He was the first catcher to label the catcher's protective gear the tools of ignorance. In the minor leagues, Rule played for the Memphis Chickasaws. Muddy Rule. George Suss was back as a coach. Suss was a Tribe coach between 1941 and 1949. And most of the year after spring training, he was a Tribe scout in 1948. George Suss. Lou Boudreau was the player manager, the starting shortstop. Boudreau batted .355. Wow. 199 hits, 116 runs scored, 34 doubles, 6 triples, 18 home runs, 106 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 98 walks in 152 games. Boudreau was a Tribe player between 1938 and 1941 and Tribe player manager from 1942 to 1950. In that one-game playoff against the Red Sox, Boudreau was 4 for 4 and hit 2 home runs in the Tribe's 8-3 victory. He was the 1948 American League MVP. On August 8th, there was a dramatic doubleheader at the stadium against the Yankees, 73,484. Boudreau was hurt. He had his ankle was real bad, but he put himself in as a pinch hitter and had a 2 RBI single to tie the game with the bases loaded. Bill Veeck called it, quote, the most courageous thing I've ever seen in baseball. The Tribe swept that doubleheader 8-6 and 2-1. Before the season, there was news of a possible trade of Boudreau, and Ed McCauley, the Cleveland sports writer, wrote, quote, if the city's terminal tower had fallen on Public Square, the shock would not have been as widely felt. In a fan poll, 90% of the fans voted to keep Boudreau. He was the 1948 Tribe Man of the Year. After the rumor of Veeck trading Boudreau to the Browns went public, there was overwhelming opposition. Boudreau said, quote, I was and always will be grateful to the fans in Cleveland for their support of me then and through the years. Every time I've returned to Cleveland for old-timers games, or as I did in 1970, after I was elected to the Hall of Fame and my Indians uniform number 5 was retired, the fans have been wonderful. On August 8th at the stadium, there was this doubleheader where Boudreau was hurt. Boudreau said, when he pinch hit, even though his ankle was very badly hurt, he had trouble running to first base after he got the single. Should have been a double. Boudreau said, quote, when I stepped out of the dugout with a bat in my hand and field announcer Jack Cresson intoned, attention please, batting for Thurman Tucker, number 5, Lou Boudreau, the fans went crazy. Their cheers were deafening and sent a chill up my spine. I forgot about how badly my ankle hurt, or that my back was stiff, or that my thumb was sore. So his single tied the game, and Boudreau said, quote, the ovation I got as I limped off the field was even greater than the one when I was announced as a pinch hitter. It was one of the highlights of my career. Again, the Tribe swept that doubleheader. Back to the possible trade of Boudreau before the season, sports writer Franklin Whitey Lewis wrote, quote, It smashed and splintered and shook the community by its civic heels until all hell popped loose. Lewis continued wrote about Boudreau's dramatic pinch hit on August 8 against the Yankees and said Boudreau was, quote, taped like a mummy. Allie Clark said, quote, Lou Boudreau never hollered at anybody or hurt anybody. If you made a mistake, he wouldn't bawl you out in front of everybody. He'd call you into his office. He was a great manager. Regarding 1948, Lou Boudreau said, quote, it was quite a year. The pressure kept building and building until I thought we'd burst. Bob Feller said, quote, I remember in 1948, Lou Boudreau said, we're going to sink or swim with Bob Feller. I was having a rough season, and after he said that, I won 10 of my last 12 games. He instilled a confidence in his players they never forgot. Lou Boudreau. Jim Hegan was the starting catcher. Hegan batted .248 with 117 hits, 21 doubles, 6 triples, 14 home runs, 61 RBIs, 6 stolen bases, 48 walks in 144 games. Hegan was with the Tribe from 1941 to 1942 and from 1946 to 1957. In the ninth inning of Game 6 of the World Series, the Tribe was up at the very end, was up 4-3 in the ninth. There was a runner on first base, and Sibby Sisti, a batter for the Braves, bunted. It was a pop-up in front of the plate, and Hegan raced out to make the catch, throw to first for a double play. So that got the first 2 outs of the ninth inning. Then there was a fly ball to Bob Kennedy in left field for the last out to clinch the World Series in 1948. Lou Boudreau said, quote, Jim Hegan is the finest catcher and one of the finest fellows in baseball. As much or more than any man, he was responsible for what we did in 1948. Jim Hegan. Eddie Robinson was at first base. Robinson batted .254 with 125 hits, 53 runs, 18 doubles, 5 triples, 16 home runs, 83 RBIs, a stolen base, 36 walks in 134 games. Robinson was with Cleveland in 1942, from 1946 to 1948, and in 1957. In June of 1948, the Tribe and Yankees were playing at Yankee Stadium. And that day, the Yankees retired Babe Ruth's number 3. Babe Ruth was dying, and there was a ceremony in his honor. Ruth was changing in the Tribe locker room because they had changed. The Yankees had changed, and that's actually where they had reversed the visiting and home locker room. So he was getting ready for the ceremony in the Tribe locker room. And then he went to the dugout, and he looked real shaky. So Eddie Robinson gave him a bat. Actually, it was Bob Feller's bat with Babe Ruth, which Babe Ruth used to support himself as a cane in the famous photograph of Babe Ruth's last appearance at Yankee Stadium. In that big August doubleheader against the Yankees, against Yankee Stadium, Tribe got a sweep, and Robinson hit 3 home runs, and he said, quote, he called it, quote, one of my most memorable days in baseball. Eddie Robinson. Joe Gordon was at second base. Gordon batted .280 with 154 hits, 96 runs, 21 doubles, 4 triples, 32 home runs, 124 RBIs. Wow. 5 stolen bases, 77 walks in 144 games. Gordon was a Tribe player from 1947 to 1950 and Tribe manager from 1958 to 1960. After winning the World Series, on the train from Boston back to Cleveland, Joe Gordon said this, quote, to the greatest leather man I ever saw, to the damnedest clutch hitter that ever lived, to a doggone good manager, Lou Boudreau. And Boudreau said this, quote, we have a great spirit on this club, and one of the main reasons for it is Joe Gordon. The guys all love him, and they respect him. Joe Gordon. Ken Keltner was at third base. Keltner had an outstanding year. He batted .297 with 166 hits, 91 runs, 24 doubles, 4 triples, 31 home runs, 119 RBIs. Wow. 2 stolen bases, 89 walks in 153 games. Keltner was with Cleveland from 1937 to 1944 and from 1946 to 1949. He hit a 3-run home run in the playoff game against the Boston Red Sox at Fenway Park over the Green Monster. So that was a key blow. He was a big hero. Keltner had this to say about the 48 Tribe, quote, we were more closely knit than teams now. We made our trips on trains and had togetherness. There wasn't much money, but a lot of fun. Ken Keltner. Dale Mitchell was in left field. Mitchell batted .336. Wow. 204 hits, 82 runs scored, 30 doubles, 8 triples, 4 home runs, 56 RBIs, 13 stolen bases, 45 walks in 141 games. And Mitchell was with Cleveland from 1946 to 1956. Mitchell saved Bob Lemon's no-hitter and during the season when George Kell had hit a drive to deep left field, which was caught by Mitchell, who then crashed into the outfield wall. He was the Tribe leadoff hitter in 1948. Dale Mitchell. Thurman Tucker was in center field. Tucker batted .260 with 63 hits. He scored 52 runs, 13 doubles, 2 triples, a home run, 19 RBIs, 11 stolen bases, 31 walks in 83 games. Tucker was born in 1917 in Gordon, Texas, and died in 1993 in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma at age 75. For his career, Tucker batted .255 with 9 home runs and 179 RBIs. He played for the Chicago White Sox and Cleveland Indians from 1942 to 1951. Tucker was an All-Star in 1944. With the White Sox, he won a World Series title in '48 with the Tribe. His nickname was Joe E. Tucker because he resembled the comedian Joe E. Brown. His first few years in the minors, one of his manager asked Tucker to take up clowning because of his resemblance to Joe E. Brown, but then he refused, and then he got the nickname because he had a serious nature. In the minor leagues, Tucker played for. He was Oklahoma City. His coach was Rogers Hornsby. Tucker was in the U.S. Navy in the Second World War. He was the leadoff hitter in the 1944 All-Star Game. In the off-season, he had a taxi, and after he retired, he was an insurance agent. His son, Ronald, was in the Vietnam War. Tucker was a scout for the Houston Astros. In the minors, he played for the Clarksdale Red Sox, El Dorado Lions, Fort Worth Cats, Greenville Bucks, Hobbs Sports, San Diego Padres, and the Lubbock Hubbers. Thurman Tucker. Larry Doby was in right field. Doby batted .301 with 132 hits. He scored 83 runs, 23 doubles, 9 triples, 14 home runs, 66 RBIs, 9 stolen bases, 54 walks in 121 games. Doby was with Cleveland from 1947 to 1955 and in 1958. He was a Tribe coach in 1974. In the offseason, he purchased Tommy Henrich's book, How to Play the Outfield, because he'd been an infielder. And Tris Speaker worked with Doby in spring training on his outfield skills. In the offseason, before the season, Doby played professional basketball in Paterson, New Jersey, for the Paterson, New Jersey Crescents in the American Basketball League. And one of his teammates was Chuck Connors, who became a famous actor in the TV series The Rifleman. Doby, during spring training in Tucson, Arizona, he was learning about. It's a special project of Tris Speaker. By June, Doby was the regular center fielder. Actually, he was friends with Marion Motley of the Cleveland Browns running back. On July 7th, the Tribe signed Satchel Paige, and that meant Doby had a roommate. Doby said, quote, "Satch arrived with 20 suits of clothes, a big smile, and no advice except to keep in there playing ball. Satch didn't care what people said or did." On July 21st, there was an exhibition game, the Tribe and Dodgers, and at the stadium, 64,877 fans came and got to see Larry Doby, Satchel Paige, Jackie Robinson, and Roy Campanella. In the playoff game against the Red Sox, Doby had 2 doubles, so that was a big help. Lou Boudreau said, quote, "Jim Hugan and Larry Doby made this ball club. It was the great improvements made by this pair that transformed what may have been a 4th-place club into a pennant winner." Game 2 of the World Series, Doby had a game-winning RBI single. And, of course, in Game 4, he hit the home run, the game-winning home run. Regarding the Game 4 of the World Series home run, Joseph Thomas Moore wrote, quote, "As Larry Doby..." against Johnny Sane. As Larry Doby planted his spiked shoe on home plate, Lou Boudreau's hand shake put a symbolic seal on one of the great baseball stories of 1948. Of course, that's after that game, they had the famous photograph with winning pitcher Steve Gromek. After the World Series, Doby and his wife Helen returned home to Paterson, New Jersey. There was a celebration in City Hall for them and a banner, "Welcome home, Larry Doby. Paterson is proud of you." And folks who came included Effa Manley, the owner of the Newark Eagles in the Negro Leagues, and Charlie Jameson, the Tribe outfielder for the championship team in 1920. Jameson predicted that Doby would be, quote, "one of the greatest players in the game because you have speed in your legs and power in your bat." After the season, Doby coached high school basketball and was asked to speak to gym classes in Paterson, and he was very honored by this. He said, quote, "I felt those gym teachers, Henry Romana and Bob Dimond, respected me because I was a successful person, not just a famous athlete. I preferred it that way. Fame is just a myth, but being a person is real." Larry Doby. Now, the bench players included Allie Clark, who played some outfield. Clark batted .310 with 84 hits, 43 runs scored, 5 doubles, 2 triples, 9 home runs, 38 RBIs, 23 walks in 81 games. Clark was born in 1923 in South Amboy, New Jersey, and died in 2012 in Sayreville, New Jersey at age 88. For his career, he batted .262 with 267 hits and 32 home runs. Clark played for the New York Yankees, Cleveland Indians, Philadelphia Athletics, and Chicago White Sox between 1947 and 1953. He was in the U.S. Army in the Second World War. He saw combat in Germany. Clark won titles for the 1947 Yankees and the 48 Tribe. In Game 7 of the 47 World Series, he pinch hit for Yogi Berra and had a single, helping the Yankees win the World Series. He was number 3 in the number 3 for the Yankees. He was the last player for the Yankees to wear number 3 before it was retired to honor Babe Ruth. After he retired, Clark for 30 years was an employee of the Iron Workers Local 373. He also served on the South Amboy, New Jersey City Council. In the minor leagues, he played for the Amsterdam Rug Makers, New Orleans Pelicans, Newark Bears, Norfolk Tars, San Antonio Missions, and San Diego Padres. Allie Clark. Wally Judnick was a utility player. Judnick batted .257 with 56 hits. He scored 36 runs, 13 doubles, 3 triples, 2 home runs, 29 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 56 walks in 79 games. Judnick was born in 1916 in San Francisco, California, and died in 1971 in Glendale, California at age 55. For his career, he batted .281 with 90 home runs and 420 RBIs. Judnick played for the St. Louis Browns, Cleveland Indians, and Pittsburgh Pirates between 1940 and 1949. He won a World Series title in '48 with the Tribe. He was a contact line drive hitter and a fine outfielder with a strong throwing arm. Judnick was in the U.S. Army Air Force in the Second World War for 3 years, and after that he was no longer at the top of his game. He was of Slovenian descent. In the minor leagues, he played for the San Francisco Seals, Seattle Rainiers, and Portland Beavers. Wally Judnick. Johnny Berardino played some infield. Berardino batted .190 with 28 hits. He scored 19 runs, 5 doubles, a triple, 2 home runs, 10 RBIs, 27 walks in 66 games. Berardino was born in 1917 in Los Angeles, California, and died in 1996 in Los Angeles at age 79. For his career, he batted .249 with 36 home runs and 387 RBIs. Berardino played for the St. Louis Browns, Cleveland Indians, and Pittsburgh Pirates between 1939 and 1952. He went to the University of Southern California and played on the baseball team. He was in the U.S. Naval Reserve in the Second World War. He won a World Series title in '48 with the Tribe. After he retired, he was an actor and was in the movies including North by Northwest, also TV shows, including The Untouchables, a dozen B movies, but was mostly known for playing Dr. Steve Hardy in the soap opera General Hospital, which aired between 1963 and 1993. Berardino has a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He was also in the movie The Kid from Cleveland and also East of Eden. He was on TV shows including Annie Oakley, Route 66, Batman, and The Love Boat. Also, Don't Look Back, the story of Satchel Paige. Berardino was traded to the Tribe from the St. Louis Browns for Catfish Metcovich and $50,000. In the clubhouse, Berardino was like to give comedy speeches, imitating Charles Lawton, who playing Captain Bligh in the movie Mutiny on the Bounty, where he'd say, I'll fight the sea and I'll be back, Fletcher Christian." Berardino planned this acting career, which actually had started before he was played for Cleveland, after he retired. So Bill Veeck insured Berardino's face for $1 million in case it was damaged by a bad hop ground ball. In the filming of in the General Hospital episodes, Berardino wore the 1948 title ring, and although as an actor he was known as Johnny Johnny Berardino. Hank Edwards played some outfield. Edwards batted .269 with 43 hits. He scored 27 runs, 9 doubles, 2 triples, 3 home runs, 18 RBIs, a stolen base, 18 walks in 55 games. Edwards was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1943, and from 1946 to 1949. There was a game in which he crashed into the outfield fence at the stadium and got a dislocated shoulder, so he missed a lot of time because of that. Hank Edwards. Joe Tipton was a spare catcher. Tipton batted .289 with 26 hits. He scored 11 runs, 3 doubles, a home run, 13 RBIs, 4 walks in 47 games. Tipton was born in 1922 in McKaysville, Georgia, and died in 1994 in Birmingham, Alabama at age 72. For his career, he batted .236 with 29 home runs and 125 RBIs. Tipton played for the Cleveland Indians, Chicago White Sox, Philadelphia Athletics, and Washington Senators between 1948 and 1954. He won a World Series title in '48 with the Tribe. He was in the U.S. Navy in the Second World War. In the Pacific Ocean, he experienced a kamikaze attack against his ship. After he retired, he worked at his service station and ran an auto dealership. In the minor leagues, Tipton played for the Memphis Chickasaws, Wilkes-Barre Barons, Appleton Papermakers, Charleston Senators, and the Flint Arrows. Joe Tipton. Bob Kennedy played some outfield. He batted .301 with 22 hits. He scored 10 runs, 3 doubles, 2 triples, 5 RBIs, 4 walks in 66 games. Kennedy was born in 1920 in Chicago, Illinois, and died in 2005 in Mesa, Arizona at age 84. For his career, he batted .254 with 63 home runs and 514 RBIs. He also was a manager. It was .264 and .278 for a winning percentage of .487. He played for the Chicago White Sox, Cleveland Indians, Baltimore Orioles, Chicago White Sox again, Detroit Tigers, and the Brooklyn Dodgers between 1939 and 1957. He was the manager of the Chicago Cubs from 1963 to 65, and also the Oakland Athletics manager in 68. He won a World Series title in '48 with the Tribe. His son was MLB catcher Terry Kennedy, who was a 4-time All-Star. In 1937, Kennedy was a 16-year-old popcorn vendor at the boxing heavyweight title fight, Joe Louis against Jimmy Braddock at Comiskey Park in Chicago. 1950, he started 2 triple plays from right field. Kennedy was the last batter in the Brooklyn Dodgers to hit for the Brooklyn Dodgers before they moved to Los Angeles. After he retired, he was a scout and farm director for the Tribe and a manager in the minor leagues for the Salt Lake City Bees. He was the first manager of the Oakland A's. And he was the St. Louis Cardinals director of player development. And 1976 Seattle Mariners startup, he was involved with the startup of baseball operations for the team. He was the Cubs general manager from 1977 to 1981. And a senior executive for the Houston Astros and San Francisco Giants. He helped Al Rosen, his teammate there. In the minor leagues, Kennedy played for the Dallas Steers, Longview Cannibals, Shreveport Sports, Vicksburg Hillbillies, and he caught the fly ball in left field at the last out in the 1948 World Series. Bob Kennedy. Hal Peck played some outfield. He batted .286 with 18 hits. He scored 12 runs, 3 doubles, 8 RBIs, a stolen base, 4 walks in 45 games. Peck was with Cleveland from 1947 to 1949. Hal Peck. Pat Seary played some outfield. He batted .261 with 6 hits. Scored 7 runs, had a home run, 6 RBIs, 7 walks in 10 games. Seary was with Cleveland from 1943 to 1948. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. He was traded on June 2nd to the White Sox. And on July 18th, he hit 4 home runs in 1 game for the White Sox. So this was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1949. Pat Seary. Ray Boone played some shortstop. Boone batted .400 with 2 hits and 5 at-bats. He had a double and RBI in 6 games. Boone was born in 1923 in San Diego, California, and died in 2004 in San Diego at age 81. For his career, he batted .275 with 151 home runs and 737 RBIs. Really good. Boone played for the Cleveland Indians, Detroit Tigers, Chicago White Sox, Kansas City Athletics, Milwaukee Braves, and Boston Red Sox between 1948 and 1960. He was a 2-time All-Star in 1954 and 56 with the Tigers. Won a World Series title in 48 with the Tribe. He was the American League RBI leader in 1955. Boone was in the U.S. Navy in the Second World War. His son, Bob Boone, was an MLB catcher from 1972 to 1990. His grandson, Brett Boone, was in the MLB from 1992 to 2005, and his other grandson, Aaron Boone, from 97 to 2009, and Aaron Boone is currently the Yankees manager. Boone's family was the first to send 3 generations to the All-Star game. His great-grandson, Jake Boone, was drafted by the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. This means the Boones are the first family to have 4 generations of pro baseball players. 1973, Boone was inducted in the San Diego Hall of Champions. After he retired for 3 decades, he was a Red Sox scout, and he's a descendant of pioneer Daniel Boone, Ray Boone. Al Rosen played some third base. Rosen batted .200 with 1 hit and 5 at-bats. Struck out twice in 5 games. Rosen was with Cleveland from 1947 to 1956. He was Jewish, and he said this, quote, "There was anti-Semitism throughout my playing days. After the birth of Israel as a nation, I think that a new aura took over, and people had more respect for Jewish athletes or Jews generally. Cleveland was great for me. I loved every minute of it." Rosen had 5 home runs and 5 at-bats at AAA for the Kansas City Blues in 1948. He was mostly in the minors. Al Rosen. Ray Murray was a spare catcher. He batted 4 times, did not have a hit, struck out 3 times. He was born in 1917 in Spring Hope, North Carolina, and died in 2003 in Fort Worth, Texas at age 85. For his career, Murray batted .252 with 184 hits, 8 home runs, and 250 games. Murray played for the Cleveland Indians, Philadelphia Athletics, and Baltimore Orioles between 1948 and 1954. He was in the U.S. Army Air Forces in World War II. They called him Deacon because of his colorful antics. He would preach to umpires. One time he stopped in the middle of a game, removed all his catcher's gear, knelt at home plate, and prayed to the Lord to give the umpire eyesight because he must be blind. For that stunt, he was ejected from the game. After he retired, he was the Fort Worth, Texas, the Tarrant County Sheriff Department warrant officer. His son and daughter were involved in Little League baseball for many years, and he was part of that. He was an accomplished golfer. Murray in the minor leagues played for the Corpus Christi Giants, Pocomoke City Chicks, Tarboro Orioles, and in Venezuela for the Leones de Caracas. Ray Murray. Now the pitching staff, the ace pitcher was Bob Lemon, who was 20-14, with an ERA of 2.82, 43 games, 37 starts, 20 complete games, 10 shutouts, 2 saves, 293 and 2/3 innings pitched, and 147 strikeouts. Lemon batted .286 with 34 hits. He had scored 20 runs, 9 doubles, 5 home runs, 21 RBIs, 8 walks in 52 games. 8 stolen bases, 23 walks in 52 games. Lemon was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1942, and from 1946 to 1958. He threw a no-hitter on June 30th in Detroit against the Tigers and won that game 2-0. Lemon won 2 games in the World Series, including the Game 6 4-3 clincher. Regarding the 48 Tribe, Lemon said in 1998, quote, "That club had more camaraderie than any club I've ever been on. 10 guys would go out to dinner together. It was the happiest team I was ever on." So he was definitely a big hero, winning 2 of the 4 World Series that we needed to win. Bob Lemon. Bob Feller was 19-15 with an ERA of 3.56, 44 games, 38 starts, 18 complete games, 2 shutouts, 3 saves, 280 in the third innings pitched, and 164 strikeouts. Feller batted .095 with 9 hits. He scored a run, 2 doubles, 3 RBIs, a walk, and struck out 39 times. Feller was with Cleveland from 1936 to 1941, and from 1945 to 1956, and was a Tribe Goodwill Ambassador till the end of his life. The home opener in '48 at the stadium, 73,163 fans saw Feller throw a 2-hitter and win a complete game shutout 4-0 against the St. Louis Browns. On June 20th at the stadium, the Tribe had a doubleheader sweep of the Philadelphia, and Bob Feller and Bob Lemon both threw shutouts. They won those games 4-3 and 10-0. The last game of the regular season, the Tribe had a chance to clinch the pennant in a game against the Tigers at the stadium, and Feller was the starting pitcher and loser. Lost that game 10-5. Feller said, quote, "I was completing my 10th year as an Indian and had won 175 games for them, but I lost the one I wanted most." Feller lost lost games in the World Series, games 1 and 5 of the World Series, and he said, quote, "I won my share, but to lose that last game of the year, lose the opening game of the World Series on a controversial play, and then get knocked out in the 7th inning of what could have been the final game added up to a heavy load." Yeah, game 1 of the World Series, it was a 1-0 game, and Feller had picked off a guy late in the game, but the umpire missed it. The runner was Phil Massey, and so they lost that. He pitched well in game 1, lost the game 1-0. He was also on the cover of Wheaties, and he said, quote, "Getting on the front of a Wheaties box is a child's dream. I never dreamed I would ever be on a Wheaties box, even though I had eaten a lot of Wheaties as a young boy." There was also a candy bar, the Bob Feller Bar, being sold, which had a chewy center of caramel peanuts covered by chocolate. Bob Feller. Gene Bearden was 20-7 with an ERA of 2.43, 37 games, 29 starts, 15 complete games, 6 shutouts, a save, 229 and 2/3 innings pitched, and 80 strikeouts. Bearden batted .256 with 23 hits. He scored 14 runs, had 3 doubles, 2 home runs, 14 RBIs, 5 walks. Bearden was with Cleveland from 1947 to 1950. In the playoff game against the Red Sox, Bearden had a complete game and won the game 8-3. In the World Series, Game 3, he threw a shutout, helping Cleveland to win 2-0. And in Game 6 of the World Series, he got a save, which clinched the World Series, and he was carried off the field after the playoff game against Boston, and got the last out on a Bertie Tebbet's ground out to Ken Keltner. Bob Feller said, quote, "That Bearden, what a man. He got me off the hook again, didn't he?" And Bob Feller continued, quote, "He won the pennant and the World Series for us. If it had not been for Gene Bearden, Cleveland would not have a world championship since 1920. Gene Bearden. Sam Zoldak was 9-6 with an ERA of 2.81. 23 games, 12 starts, 4 complete games, a shutout, 105 and 2/3 innings pitched, and 17 strikeouts. Zoldak batted .139 with 5 hits. He had a double and a walk. He was born in 1918 in Brooklyn, New York, and died in 1966 in New Hyde Park, New York, at age 47. For his career, he was 43-53 with an ERA of 3.54 and 207 strikeouts. Zoldak played for the St. Louis Browns, Cleveland Indians, and Philadelphia Athletics between 1951 and 1952. Won a World Series title in '48 with the Tribe. He was raised by his mother, who worked at her confectionery store. He grew up where in the off season he worked there. And also, growing up, he played college baseball for the Fordham Rams. He was traded to the Tribe on June 15th in 1948. 1949, he hit his only career home run, but there was a rainout, so the home run was wiped out. In 1951, he had a no-hitter. After he retired, he was a box office man. He worked sporting events and Broadway shows. He died of lung cancer. In the minor leagues, Zoldak played for the Palatka Azaleas, Seattle Rainiers, Selma Cloverleafs, Williamsport Graves. June 15th, Zoldak was purchased from the St. Louis Browns for $100,000 and pitcher Bill Kennedy. Sam Zoldak. Don Black was 2-2 with an ERA of 5.37, 18 games, 10 starts, a complete game, 52 innings pitched, and 16 strikeouts. Black batted .200 with 3 hits. He scored a run, and he played for Cleveland from 1946 to 1948. This was the end of his MLB career. On September 13th, Don Black started the game, and he was batting in the second inning and had a cerebral hemorrhage, and for a week was near death in the hospital. It took him a month to survive, and he never pitched again. After the Tribe won the 8-3 playoff game against the Red Sox in Boston, at the celebration at the Kenmore Hotel in Boston, Lou Boudreau said, "I offer a toast to a guy who right now is in the hospital, Don Black," and tears were running down Boudreau's cheeks. Regarding his no-hitter, Don Black said, "You can chalk that victory up for Alcoholics Anonymous." Don Black. Russ Christopher was the closer, relief pitcher. He was 3-2 with an ERA of 2.90, 45 games, 17 saves, 59 innings pitched, 14 strikeouts. He batted 6 times, did not have a hit, scored a run, and walked twice. Christopher was born in Richmond, California, and died in 1917, and died in 1954 in Richmond at age 37. For his career, he was 54-64 with an ERA of 3.37 and 424 strikeouts. Christopher played for the Philadelphia Athletics and Cleveland Indians between 1942 and 1948. He was an All-Star in 1945 and won a World Series title in 48 with the Tribe. His brother Lloyd Christopher was an MLB outfielder. As a child, Christopher had rheumatic fever and had a damaged heart. He was purchased on April 3rd, 1948. Lou Boudreau said, quote, "With Christopher on our staff, we're definitely contenders." He retired in 1949 because of health problems. He had a comeback in 51 with the San Diego Padres in the minors and was released. He had heart surgery. He worked at an aircraft plant in San Diego. In the minor leagues, Christopher played for the Clovis Pioneers, El Paso Texans, Wenatchee Chiefs. Bob Lemon said, quote, "Sometimes you didn't know if he was going to make it. His lips were ashen. When he warmed up in the bullpen, he'd throw 3 pitches and say he was ready. He'd say, 'I don't want to leave it down here.' His body could only take so much." Gene Bearden said, quote, "Russ Christopher looked blue. Everyone felt sorry for him. He'd get to the point where he couldn't breathe. Everybody said he was going to die. It was bad. He threw underhand, but he'd get you out." Russ Christopher. Steve Gromek was primarily a relief pitcher. He was 9-3 with an ERA of 2.84, 38 games, 9 starts, 4 complete games, a shutout, 2 saves, 130 innings pitched, and 50 strikeouts. Gromek batted .146 with 6 hits. He scored 3 runs, had a double, an RBI, and walked 3 times. Gromek was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1953. Gromek had a complete game and won 2-1 in Game 4 of the World Series to put the Tribe up 3-1. And then there's the famous photo of Gromek hugging Larry Doby, who hit a home run. Quote, Bob Dolgan said, quote, "Steve Gromek was a good Major League pitcher. He won a World Series game for the 48 Indians and had 123 victories in 17 years in the big leagues. But he always will be remembered most for a hug. It was the first time in baseball history that a white and black man were photographed embracing in a spirit of friendship. The picture, considered a civil rights milestone, was carried by newspapers all over the country." Steve Gromek. Ed Kleeman was a relief pitcher. Kleeman was 3-2 with an ERA of 2.60, 44 games, 4 saves, 79 2/3 innings pitched, and 18 strikeouts. Kleeman batted .143 with 2 hits and 14 at-bats and walked twice. Kleeman was with Cleveland from 1943 to 1948, so this was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1950. Ed Kleeman. Satchel Paige was 6-1 with an ERA of 2.48, 21 games, 7 starts, 3 complete games, 2 shutouts, a save, 72 2/3 innings pitched, and 43 strikeouts. Paige batted .87 with 2 hits and 23 at-bats and struck out 5 times. Satchel Paige was born in 1906 in Mobile, Alabama, and died in 1982 in Kansas City, Missouri at age 75. Most of his career was in the Negro Leagues, and reportedly his record was won 100 games and lost 50. In MLB, he was 28-31 with an ERA of 3.29. In the Negro Leagues, Paige played for the Chattanooga Lookouts, Birmingham Black Barons, Baltimore Black Sox, the Cleveland Cubs, Pittsburgh Crawfords, Kansas City Monarchs, and then for Ciudad Trujillo Dragones in the Dominican Republic, for the Memphis Red Sox and Philadelphia Stars between 1926 and 1950. In the MLB, Paige played for the Cleveland Indians, St. Louis Browns, and Kansas City Athletics between 1948 and 1965. He was a five-time Negro League All-Star in 1934-36 from 41 to 43. He won a Negro League title in 1942 with the Kansas City Monarchs. He was a two-time MLB All-Star in 1952 and 53. Won a World Series title in 48 with the Tribe. He's in the Tribe Hall of Fame and was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1971. His given name was Leroy Robert. He had longevity and attracted crowds wherever he pitched. He was an MLB rookie in 1948 at age 42, the oldest rookie ever. He was infectious. He had his infectious, cocky, enthusiastic personality. He loved the game and was a star. His family changed the name. It was spelled Page, and they added an I in the mid-20s. Paige said, quote, "They stuck in the I to make themselves sound more high-tone." At age 12, Paige got in trouble for shoplifting, was sent to the Alabama Reform School for Negro lawbreakers in Mount Megas, and he's in Alabama, and stayed there till he was 18. But he developed as a baseball player. He said, quote, "They were not wasted years at all. It made a real man out of me." 1931 with the Cleveland Cubs, and he played for Cleveland in the Negro Leagues. He had 9 winners barnstorming, playing against MLB teams. A Negro League team against MLB teams. Satchel Paige against Dizzy Dean and Bob Feller. He also played in Mexico All-Star teams, and played in Mexico and Venezuela, Puerto Rico. Had famous duels with Josh Gibson. July 7th, 48, the Tribe signed Paige. On August 3rd, 48, the Tribe and Senators were playing, and there was 72,562 fans came to the stadium, and another MLB record. Paige started and won that game 4-2. Comiskey Park in Chicago, 51,013 fans came to see Satchel Paige throw a complete game shutout, 5-0 for the Tribe victory. On August 20th at the stadium, the Tribe and White Sox played. Paige was the winning pitcher and again threw a shutout, 1-0. 1960, he won in front of 78,382 fans. It was a three-hitter, and it was the 4th straight Tribe shutout. In 65, with the Kansas City Athletics, he got in 1 game, 3 innings pitched, and 0 earned runs allowed at age 59. Paige appeared in the 1957 movie The Wonderful Country with Robert Mitchum. He played a Buffalo soldier. At Ted Williams' Hall of Fame induction speech, he urged the induction of Negro League players. 1999, Paige was ranked 19th among the greatest baseball players of all time. And for the Sporting News, Satchel Paige had rules for a living. He said, quote, "Avoid fried meats, which angry up the blood. If your stomach disputes you, lie down and pacify with cool thoughts. Keep the juices flowing by jangling around gently as you move. Go very light on the vices, such as carrying on in society, because the social ramble ain't restful. Avoid running at all times, and don't look back. Something might be gaining on you." For his first 3 starting games, he started as a pitcher. The total fans who came to see him play were 201,829 fans. That must be a record. Bob Feller said, quote, "When your team finishes tied, any pitcher who won 6 of his 7 starts has a right to claim he was a major help. Satch didn't say that because he wasn't that kind of guy to go around blowing his own horn, but the rest of us knew we owed a lot that year to our 42-year-old rookie." Paige was the 4th black MLB player after Jackie Robinson, Larry Doby, and Roy Campanella. Franklin Whitey Lewis, sports writer, said, quote, "Satchel Paige drove bright-hued automobiles and wore fancy garments. He missed trains and was fined by Lou Boudreau within a week after he joined the Tribe. Old Satch had been around too long to be bothered by much. He just pitched, often hard, invariably with accuracy, always with confidence and courage." In Chicago, the gates of Comiskey Park were literally battered and shattered by fans, brawling to get inside and watch the sensational Negro hurler. Police reserves fought with 10,000 people outside the park to clear the streets. Regarding Paige's July 9, 1948 debut at the stadium, Bob Dolgan wrote, quote, "From the moment the tall, skinny black man walked out of the bullpen to face the St. Louis Browns, he had the crowd eating out of his hand. He looked and behaved like an old man, an important part of his persona. He walked slowly. He looked unconcerned. When he finally arrived at the mound, he threw sidearm, submarine, and overhand pitches. He used the triple windup, double windup, no windup, and hesitation pitch. He got the third out in the sixth inning, and a routine fly ball to left fielder Dale Mitchell." Dolgan continued, quote, "Paige ambled off the hill as soon as the ball was hit and didn't bother to watch Mitchell catch it. 50 years later, a Cleveland fan who was present recalled the gesture. The fans went crazy. We loved it." Satchel Paige would leave a ticket for Mrs. Paige for every game, and each day a different woman would show up, and Bill Vex said, quote, "Satch, are you married?" And Paige said, quote, "No, but I'm in great demand." Lou Friedman wrote, quote, "Each time Satchel Paige pitched and handled men 2 decades his junior, he embarrassed the baseball establishment for not recognizing his greatness years earlier." Regarding playing for MLB and possibility of being nervous, he said, quote, "Plate's the same size, isn't it?" I'm reading a fine book. The title is Satchel, The Life and Times of an American Legend by Larry Tye, 2009. 1932, Paige was playing for the Pittsburgh Crawfords, and there was a game. He was playing right field in a game, and Buck Leonard, it was in the Hall of, said, quote, "There was a fly ball to right field, and Buck Leonard said, quote, 'All of us were looking out in right field for Satchel to catch the ball, or try to catch it. He's over there on the sideline lighting a cigarette from one of the fans.'" Larry Tye wrote, quote, "White America had Babe Ruth's rags to riches story to help it through the Depression. Blacks had Satchel Paige. It was Satchel who made fans laugh as well as gasp and kept them coming to Negro League games during those hardest of times." Paige said this, quote, "Bases on balls is the curse of the nation. Throw strikes at all times, unless you don't want to." Paige played on an interracial team in Bismarck, North Dakota in 1933 and 35. And Larry Tye wrote, quote, "Satchel and his teammates reminded America that blacks and whites could play baseball side by side without the sky falling, fans rioting, or the standard of play being compromised. More than a decade before Branch Rickey signed Jackie Robinson to the Brooklyn Dodgers, the club from North Dakota offered Major League executives proof that integrated baseball could put money in their pockets." I'm reading another fine book. The title is The Pitcher and the Dictator. Satchel Paige's Unlikely Season in the Dominican Republic by Averill Ace Smith, 2018. Regarding 1937, Paige played in the Dominican Republic for the dictator Rafael Trujillo's team, the Ciudad Trujillo Dragones for Santo Domingo in the capital. During that time, he played against Louis Tiant Sr., whose son played for the tribe. He was with Buck O'Neill. With Buck O'Neill, Paige visited an old warehouse in Charleston, South Carolina, where African slaves had been auctioned. O'Neill said, quote, "We stood there 30 minutes, not saying a word to each other." Paige said, quote, "I feel like I've been here before." Satchel Paige said in 1948, quote, "After 22 years of throwing, I was going to get a crack at the major leagues." On August 20th, 1948, at the stadium, the Tribe were playing the White Sox, and the Tribe had 3 shutouts in a row. If they got a fourth, it would tie a record. Paige pitched. Another record crowd, 78,000 fans, including 400 Ohio mayors who came. And Paige pitched a complete game shutout and won 1-0, a 3-hitter. The sports writers at the stadium stood and applauded. Larry Tye wrote, quote, "It was their way of saying they were sorry it had taken so long for Paige to play Major League Baseball." Larry Tye wrote this about 1948, quote, "Each game that he won had fans and writers marveling over what he must have been like in his prime, and which other lines of baseball had been lost to Jim Crow." Satchel Paige. Bob Moncrief was 5-4 with an ERA of 3.98. 21 games, 9 starts, a complete game, a shutout, 72 and a third innings pitched, and 24 strikeouts. Moncrief batted .111 with 2 hits and 18 at-bats and 2 walks. He was born in 1916 in Maddale, Oklahoma, and died in Duncanville, Texas at age 80. For his career, he was 80 and 82 with an ERA of 3.80 and 525 strikeouts. Moncrief played for the St. Louis Browns, Cleveland Indians, Pittsburgh Pirates, Chicago Cubs, and New York Yankees between 1937 and 1951. He was an All-Star in 1944 with the St. Louis Browns, won a World Series title in 48 with the Tribe, and an American League title in 44 with the Browns. In 1951, he won a World Series title with the Yankees. Bob Moncrief. Bill Kennedy was 1-0 with an ERA of 11.12, 6 games, 3 starts, 11 and a third innings pitched, and 12 strikeouts. They called him Lefty. He batted .667 with 2 hits and 3 at-bats. He scored a run and walked once. Kennedy was born in 1921 in Carnesville, Georgia, and died in 1983 in Seattle, Washington at age 62. For his career, he was 15 and 28 with an ERA of 4.73 and 256 strikeouts. Kennedy played for the Cleveland Indians, St. Louis Browns, Chicago White Sox, Boston Red Sox, and Cincinnati Redlegs between 1948 and 1957. In 1947, he led the American League in games pitched. And he was in the U.S. Army in the Second World War and died of lung cancer. In the minor leagues, Kennedy played for the Louisville Colonels, Portland Beavers, Rocky Mount Rocks, Scranton Red Sox, and in Venezuela for the Navegantes del Magallanes. Bill Kennedy. Lyman Lind had no decisions and an ERA of 5.40, 3 games, 10 innings pitched, and 6 earned runs allowed. He batted twice, did not have a hit. Lind was with Cleveland from 1947 to 1948, and this was the end of his MLB career. Lyman Lind. Al Gettle was 0-1 with an ERA of 17.61. 5 games, 2 starts, 7 and 2/3 innings pitched, and 4 strikeouts. He batted 3 times, did not have a hit, and scored a run. Gettle was with Cleveland from 1947 to 1948. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1955. Mike Garcia had no decisions and an ERA of 0.00. 1 game, 2 innings pitched, and a strikeout. He did not bat. Garcia was born in 1923 in San Gabriel, California, and died in 1986 in Fairview Park, Ohio at age 62. For his career, he was 142 and 97, with an ERA of 3.27 and 1,117 strikeouts. Garcia pitched for the Cleveland Indians, Chicago White Sox, and Washington Senators between 1948 and 1961. He was a 3-time All-Star with the Tribe, 1952, 53, and 54. He won a World Series title in 48 with the Tribe. He was a 2-time American League leader in 1949-54 in strikeouts. He's in the Tribe Hall of Fame. They called him Big Bear and Mexican Mike. Garcia was in the U.S. Army in the Second World War. From 1949 to 54, he was part of the Big Four, the Tribe rotation, with Bob Lemon, Early Wynn, and Bob Feller, one of the greatest pitching rotations of all time. He had two 20-win seasons. After he retired, he developed diabetes and had kidney disease and heart trouble until his death. He's considered one of the He was rated one of the Tribe's 100 greatest players of all time. Garcia is of Mexican ancestry. He's very close with Marty Perez, who played MLB for the Atlanta Braves, and they're like cousins. Garcia had a large frame. He was roommate and translator for Bobby Avila. Hal Lebovitz wrote, quote, "Mike Garcia, until the day he died, would tell me how much of a success he owed to pitching coach Mel Harder. He also raced midget cars. He had severe health trouble. He was on dialysis and died with $100,000 in unpaid medical bills. Very, very, very tragic. There's a current Tribe award, the Mike Garcia Award, given to the area high school student in Cleveland for outstanding success in the classroom, field, and in the community. In the minor leagues, Garcia played for the Appleton Papermakers, Bakersfield Indians, and the Wilkes-Barre Barons. And he's in the Appleton Baseball Hall of Fame. Mike Garcia. Butch Wensloff was 0-1 with an ERA of 10.80. 1 game, 1 2/3 innings pitched, and 2 strikeouts. They called him Charlie. He did not bat. He was born in 1915 in Sausalito, California, and died in 2001 in San Rafael, California at age 85. For his career, he was 16-13 with an ERA of 2.60 and 125 strikeouts. Wentzlaff pitched for the New York Yankees and Cleveland Indians between 1943 and 1948. He won World Series titles in 47 with the Yankees and in 48 with the Tribe. He was in the U.S. Army in the Second World War. In 1942 in the minors, he was a AA All-Star and had a record of 21-10. Butch Wentzlaff. Ernest Groth had no decisions and an ERA of 9.00. One game, one inning pitched, and one earned run allowed. He did not bat. Groth was with Cleveland from 1947 to 1948. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1949. Ernest Groth. And finally, Les Weber had no decisions and an ERA of 40.50. One game, 2/3 of an innings pitched, and 3 earned runs allowed. He did not bat. Weber was with Cleveland in 1946 and 1948, and this was the end of his MLB career. After the regular season, the World Series was played. The American League champions, Cleveland Indians, defeated the Boston Braves, National League champions, 4-2. Hall of Famers in the World Series for Cleveland included Lou Boudreau, Larry Doby, Bob Feller, Joe Gordon, Bob Lemon, and Satchel Paige. For the Braves, manager Billy Southworth and Warren Spahn. Game 1 of the World Series, Cleveland lost 1-0. Bob Feller, in the 8th inning, the game was scoreless. Bob Feller against Johnny Sain. Feller picked off Phil Massey at second base, but the umpire called him safe. And later, there was a hit, and Massey scored the only run. The 1948 World Series was the first to be televised. However, only 3% of Americans had televisions. After the Tribe won the World Series, they returned to Cleveland from Boston, and James Odenkirk rode coat. The team quickly boarded their special train for the overnight trip back to a city of delirious fans. The trip would be a night of celebration that no one on board would soon forget. For many, the biggest thrill occurred after the train pulled out of South Station. Bill Veeck walked into the dining car, and all the players stood and applauded. Seldom has a Major League franchise seen such a rapport between an owner and its players. Right after they got back to Cleveland, there was a parade on Euclid Avenue. They arrived at the train station under the terminal tower, and the parade was from Public Square to University Circle. There were banners, whistles, horns, balloons, a ticker tape, and 200,000 fans came for that parade. The Tribe players had a World Series share of $6,772 per fan. After the Tribe won the playoff game against the Red Sox, Franklin Whitey Lewis wrote, quote, Lou Boudreau rushed toward Joe Gordon and wrapped both arms around Joe. The Indians stormed from the dugout, picked up Gene Bearden, and carried him off the field. In Cleveland, thousands poured out of offices and stores and celebrated in the streets. Business was suspended. Those rampant Redskins had done it. And for the World Series, 4 games before the series, Braves outfielder and former Tribe player Jeff Heath slid into home plate at Ebbets Field and had a broken ankle and was out for the World Series. That was a big loss. Game 5 was at the World Series. Games 3, 4, and 5 were in Cleveland at the stadium. There was a record crowd of 86,288. Bob Feller pitched and lost that game 11-5. And then they went back to Boston and won Game 6 and returned to Cleveland. Franklin Whitey Lewis wrote, quote, The city of Cleveland was prepared for the arrival of its heroes the next morning. Shortly after dawn, multitudes assembled the length of Cleveland Avenue, the city's chief business artery. Thousands forced their way into the Union Terminal, under Terminal Tower. The Indians walked through police-guarded lanes of humanity to the street levels. There they climbed into top-down convertibles. The morning was warm, the sun bright. School officials had not dismissed classes officially. If you want to go downtown to see the Indians come home, you will not be marked absent. Teachers were instructed to say. How many people cheered, applauded, slapped, touched, and idolized the Indians on a 5-mile slow-motion cruise from Public Square to University Circle will never be known. Police guesses were a minimum of 300,000. Never in the city's history had a returning hero or band of heroes home from war or conquest ever received such a welcome. Now backing up a little bit, Boston Braves and had a very strong the first two pitchers in the rotation, Warren Spahn and Johnny Sane, and the saying was Spahn and Sane and pray for rain. Warren Spahn was the winningest left-handed pitcher of all time, won 363 games. First two games were in Boston. Games 3, 4, and 5 were in Cleveland. Game 3, fans entered the stadium and there were a band serenading hired by Bill Veeck, creating a festive atmosphere. Game 3, the Tribe won 2-0. Gene Bearden had a complete game shutout. Game 4, 81,897 fans saw Steve Gromek pitch a complete game and win 2-0 with Larry Doby home run. Put the Tribe up 3-1. After the World Series, Lou Boudreau said to the team, quote, "I want to tell you fellas something that's deep in my heart. I want to tell you how grateful I am for your loyalty. You have conducted yourselves like gentlemen on and off the field. You have been absolutely magnificent." At the parade, regarding the parade, Al Rosen wrote, quote, "Man, I never want to play baseball in another city. This Cleveland is marvelous." Lou Friedman wrote, quote, "The Indians had done it, won it, with an amazing cast of characters, made a grateful Cleveland king of the baseball universe. In the city by the lake, the year 1948 would live forever as the sweetest summer of all." Now, the most valuable players in 1948 in the American League were Lou Boudreau for the Cleveland Indians, and in the National League, Stan Musial for the St. Louis Cardinals. So, the 1948 Tribe, wow, World Series champions. This was a tremendous year, an incredible year. And God bless the guys who played for the Cleveland Indians in 1948 and everyone else associated with the team, including the fans, especially the First World War veterans, Spanish-American War veterans, and Second World War veterans. Captains of the Cuyahoga, lovers of Lake Erie, Terminal Tower Power, fans of the Free Stamp statue and the Fountain of Eternal Life, Euclid Avenue electricity, Severance Hall stalwarts, Cleveland Museum of Art enthusiasts, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum rebels, Christmas Story Brown House happy people, Museum of Contemporary Art maniacs, Cleveland Botanical Garden goers, Old Arcade admirers, Playhouse Square seers, Settlers Landing Park purists, Western Reserve Historical Society wonders, First Energy Stadium friends, Progressive Field pals, Quicken Loans Arena enthusiasts, Cuyahoga Valley National Park pioneers, and Great Lakes Science Center supporters. Cleveland is the best location in the nation on the north coast of America. New York is the Big Apple. Cleveland is a plum. Tribe, Browns, Cavs, Monsters, Gladiators, and Fusion rule. Cleveland, city of champions. Tribe's having a good year. Go Tribe. This is our year. It's been we have a 71-year title drought going. You might consider checking out our website, Adventures in History with Peter J. Ray at peterjray.com. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.